Today we're going to be decoupaging a ton of ornaments, starting with this beautiful gem, and I want to show you how you can take little wine cork bottle lights and shove in the top of these so you can make your decoupage ornament glow. This is just one of the Dollar Tree ornaments that we're going to be using for this project. You'll notice if you take the cork light and you place it in here that it doesn't necessarily fit. It's a little bit wonky and it's not going to be stable at all. So we want this to set in the top here just perfectly, and we're going to use some twine to do that. For anyone interested in purchasing these, I do have a link down in my Amazon store in the description box. And yes, there is a battery pack on here, so they can be replaced. Once we glue the twine and all that stuff on here, you'll notice we're not going to be able to get the battery out and replace anything. So keep that in mind while you're making these. If you want to be able to replace the batteries, then obviously glue these together differently than I'm about to show you. We need that twine to create that cork stopper effect. And to do that, I'm just going to take some and wrap it around right underneath the button, because we also need access to that button. Once I'm happy with it and I put it back into the ornament and I notice it stops, I'm just gluing everything down. I unraveled the lights and then started pushing them down inside of the ornament using a couple different little things. I didn't want all the lights just sitting in one corner in the bottom of the ornament. I wanted them to be spread out so everything had an even glow. In order to be able to hang our ornament, we're going to need to create that hanger effect. So I cut a couple inches of twine and then glued it down to each side, making sure it was able to fit in top of our ornament. If you put it together right, it should look like this. And we want to make sure that you don't wake up on Christmas morning with a bunch of decoupage ornaments on the floor. So we're going to grab some tacky glue, rub some around the top of that ornament, around the twine, around the hanger. Make sure we shove that sucker down in there real tight and put it off to the side to dry. Then it's time to pick you a napkin. I'm going to be using this beauty that was sent to me from a subscriber that I had sitting off to the side. I was waiting for such an occasion. I'm going to remove those sneaky layers on the back. Now, my preferred method, there are several ways to do this, is just to tear a corner, it reveals the sneaky layers, and I just pull them apart. We're only going to be using the top layer for this. Then I took a minute to cut down the napkin. If you've never decoupaged anything that is round, it can be a pain for someone like me that's been doing this for years, let alone a beginner. So having too much excess to deal with to try and not get attached can be a pain. To attach the napkins, I'm just going to be using a fan brush and some good old Mod Podge. But first I decided to take some of my Waverly Snow White chalk paint and apply a layer onto the back of the ornament. I'm not going to put it on the front because then we won't be able to really see the glow from the fairy lights we put inside. And people, if you want to decoupage the whole ornament, you go right ahead. Truth be told, I was being lazy and I was like, nope, we're not doing both sides. It's been my experience that when we're blending a piece, sharp edges don't really give that effect. So I'm going to take a little bit of water and just spray around the edge of the napkin. Don't oversaturate it because you will destroy it. And then just break, creating a little bit of a tear. This is going to allow our napkin to just blend into the color that we painted around the edges. Keep in mind, you might have to tear more of the napkin once you get this applied on here. Just having it torn already in certain sections just helps give you a head start in the event that some pieces line up perfectly. Whenever I'm doing ornaments like this, I find it best if I just pick the center of the area and then put a decent amount of Mod Podge around where I want the piece to go. I never really go all the way to the edges. This way it allows me the ability to come and fix it as we're blending it to the side to help reduce any excess wrinkles. You'll see here I'm using a little bit of water to remove the excess paper and taking the cling wrap to help smooth it around as I'm applying more Mod Podge and just attaching everything. I allowed that to dry and then came on in with the white paint and tappity tap tap tapped all around the seams where the napkin met the back, just blending everything in. Use whatever sealer you would like for your piece. I just took some Mod Podge and went over the whole ornament. I grabbed my Dixie Belle silver gilding wax and went ham on that little cork piece. Really did not like the color of it. It felt like it stuck out like a sore thumb with our beautiful ornament and felt like that silver really helped bring this piece together. On a recent trip to Dollar Tree, I seen these letter ornaments with the Santa hat, and I had a really awesome idea to use them not just as ornaments, but as decor. To do that, we're going to decoupage this piece. We're gonna need to create a base, and you can use a chalk paint or a multi-surface. Really is up to you, but I highly recommend using one of these two on a surface like this. Giving it a nice white background is just gonna allow whatever you're decoupaging onto the piece for the design to pop. I decided to go ahead and use the Waverly Snow White chalk paint. I want to use the iron-on method on this piece, so I'm going to put a nice healthy layer of Mod Podge right on the top and then let that dry naturally for about 3 to 4 hours. I know, people, I hate waiting too, okay? But it's been my experience that it just ends up best if we let it dry naturally. Make sure that your piece looks nice, thick, and juicy like this with Mod Podge everywhere, and then set it to the side. When it's dry, pick you out a napkin and then get rid of all the sneaky layers. We're just going to use that top decorative layer, and we're going to cut that piece down to fit right over top of our letter. Now it's time to bring on in our iron. This is the iron that I like to use. I usually just keep this little joint right next to my craft station, turn it all the way up, let it heat up, and then I will grab some parchment paper. You want to use parchment paper, not wax paper. Parchment paper is for heat. Make sure everything's in place. Pick a side and iron from one side to the next. When you're sure that you've attached everything, take a second and just look over the piece. Make sure everything is connected all around the edges. Now it's time to get rid of all the excess, and usually I sand that off. But for entertainment value today, mine and the light were in the garage, but I know I got some little pyros in here, and y'all love to see me do randomness with my crafting, so here we go. Fire, fire. Ooh, ooh. You can absolutely sand this off, but I decoupage so much and I rarely ever do this because I scare myself. But it does work. The M is for Mama, which is the nickname that I call my mom. She told me I could decorate her house for Christmas as long as it had blue in it. So when I seen this ornament, I thought this would be absolutely a perfect little way to add a little something into one of her kitchen shelves. Last year, I picked up one of these ceramic houses and was not crazy about the end result. So I felt this year I had to redeem myself, and I have this adorable Snoopy napkin in my stash. And we're gonna keep this nice and simple. First, we're just gonna remove those sneaky layers from the top decorative layer because we won't be needing those. And then we're going to trim out just one of the houses. And I'm just tearing it. You could absolutely cut it, it's up to you. And then we're gonna put a nice thin layer of Mod Podge, smush it all around, and gingerly place our napkin down exactly where we would like it. Next, I'm grabbing a little sponge. This is just a dry kitchen sponge. As you can see, I've cut little sections off the back. I use them for painting. I like to take dry sponges and press napkins down into place. It's a really good tip when you're decoupaging. Helps to seep up any of that excess Mod Podge that squeezes through those little pores in the napkin and helps reduce wrinkles. Next, I'm just taking a little piece of cling wrap and going over, smoothing it all out. I added a tiny bit of greenery at the top, and I love how this turned out. Dollar Tree's wood ornaments are always great for creating sets. I'm going to take 3 of these little tree wood ornaments and put a nice base coat for our decoupage. Helps to spread around the paint. Just add a little bit of water. You can skip that part if you want to. For this little set, we're going to be using this Nutcracker napkin. I'm going to remove those sneaky layers off the back. We're just going to be using this half decorative layer. And then I'm going to take a little bit of water on the end of a paintbrush and trim out each Nutcracker so we can put one on each tree. Since the napkin's background is white, it blended in perfectly with these trees. Took some gold and added around the edges and our star and a little green bow right on the top for accent. If your Dollar Tree is anything like mine, you struggle to find those round wood ornaments around the holidays. So I hit up Amazon and grabbed this big old pack. And yes, I do have it linked down in my Amazon affiliate link in the description box. Took out a bunch of these and I grabbed my Waverly Snow White chalk paint and I'm giving a bunch of them a nice base coat. And we're gonna leave a couple plain. Wood ornaments can be decoupaged so many different ways, but these in particular, we're going to be using TDS Decoupage tissue paper to create a bunch of ideas. You'll notice that my sheets are cut up. That's because I use my TDS Decoupage tissue paper all the time. So I'm just taking some leftovers and grabbing little sections that I think are going to make adorable ornaments. Take these ideas and remix them with what works best for you. I feel like ornaments are a great place to start if you're a beginner at decoupage. It's super simple. You just pick your medium, you pick whatever it is that you want to apply on here, you grab some cling wrap, you gingerly place it down where you would like it, allow it to dry, trim off the excess, and then seal over it. Use whatever accents you would like, whatever colors you would like to enhance the decoupage paper, and rinse and repeat. Dollar Tree and Walmart have these small accent ornaments and I love to pick them up. You can use them just to decorate with, but I think they pair amazingly with little DIY ornaments. While I love taking the designs on napkins and tissue paper and rice paper to decoupage ornaments with, and many things with, there is a whole nother way that you can get nice and crafty at creating these around the holiday season. Pick a whole single pattern and apply it to your ornament. Now, this could also be anything. It could be a cabinet door. You can just take a background design of one single thing, allow it to dry, and then go find you some transfers. These are TDS dry rub on transfers. They are not wet transfers. You do not need water for them. You can just apply it right on top of these. Now, I do recommend whenever you're doing this with decoupage, especially if you're going to do this with a napkin, please apply a sealer like I am here. I'm putting a layer of Mod Podge over it first. This is going to make sure that whatever you've decoupaged is down into place. It's also going to make sure that it's not going to stick and come off, so your transfer stays on whatever you're putting it on. It also requires a little bit of patience, because letting that sealer dry for a couple hours before you put on the transfer is key to the success of the transfer sticking onto your piece. And if you don't have any transfers that you would like, but you have a lot of decoupage paper that will make great backgrounds, stencils would work as well. Decoupaging ornaments can make perfect little gifts, especially if you know somebody that you want to give a gift to and they're not always in the Christmassy spirit. You can find something that you know that they like and shove on the ornaments. Like for me, I grabbed this little gnome drinking coffee because I love me some coffee, sitting on a bench. It looks so cozy. Love how this piece turned out. And if you don't want to put a white base coat down, you don't have to, not for everything you're decoupaging. It does help to make designs pop, but if you're using a paper or a napkin that has that tan background, it really just blends in beautifully. If you have some beat up paint sticks laying around that you have used for one thing or another, don't throw those suckers away. Instead, let's bring on in the miter shears and cut them suckers down, create some decoupage ornaments out of them. You can obviously make these as big as you would like. I decided just to pretty much cut mine in half and get 2 out of this paint stick. Next, I grabbed my Snow White Waverly chalk paint and gave these little paint sticks a nice coat of paint on the front and the back. For the decoupage portion of these ornaments, I wanted an accent and a solid piece. So I cut out just a tiny portion, made sure to just have that top decorative layer, and then added these on just to the tips of the paint sticks. Next, I grabbed some TDS dry rub on transfers and cut out little sections that I wanted to put on our ornaments. If you don't want to use transfers, but you like this idea, you could find napkins that have little words or have little patterns that you would like to decoupage onto these, or grab you a stencil and add the stencil design. A stamp would work as well. I took my drill and added some holes, and I absolutely love how this old paint stick turned out. For this little Dollar Tree Santa ornament, I grabbed my Waverly White chalk paint, gave this a nice base coat and then picked out this really cool napkin that is tiered like a tree and it has different sayings on it. I trimmed the whole thing out to size and then applied a layer of Mod Podge right over the Santa Claus and pressed down our napkin. Of all the wood ornaments that I can pick up at Dollar Tree, these snowmen are my favorite to grab and create little unique sets with. We're going to give them a nice coat of Waverly Snow White chalk paint for a base for the decoupage and allow that to dry. I'm going rustic with this set and I grabbed some TDS A4 rice paper and cut down a couple sections to apply onto our snowmen. I used some Mod Podge for the medium, allowed these to dry, and then sanded off the excess on one, and I used the burn method on the other. I wanted to give a side-by-side comparison to those who aren't sure what they like, so you can see how basically the burn method allows for that crisp, dark outside layer, while the one that we sanded does not have that. I added a little scarf to one and left the other one just as it is, and I love how this set turned out. I ordered this giant pack of wood slices off of Amazon. I do have it linked down in my Amazon affiliate link in the description box for anyone that's interested. We're going to create a couple little dome pieces, little dome ornaments. These are just ornament halves. You see the little hole? Yeah, I'm faking it, okay? They aren't the actual dome piece, just in case you're wondering. For this rustic ornament, we're gonna be using a piece of A4 TDS rice paper, and we're going to put a little bit of water on a paintbrush and just trim out the section that we want to go onto our ornament. You can use scissors and cut yours down if you'd like. I personally find that it blends better if it's torn. For the medium, I'm just gonna use some Mod Podge, and then I'm taking our little section and spritzing it with a little bit of water. I find that if I wet the rice paper, it tends to go on really flawlessly with minimal wrinkles. I nipped the tip of our little plastic ornament there so it wasn't hanging off and looking awkward on our pretty little rustic piece that we're creating. And then I took some antique wax and trimmed up around the edges, making sure it looked really nice. And then I grabbed our messy little snow bits that I had in my stash. I picked this up, I think, probably 2 years ago from Dollar Tree. That's how little I use this stuff. Now, I find that gluing the plastic piece down around the outside is definitely better than getting that glue on the inside, because some of those little white bits will stick to the ceiling of your ornament. For this little dome ornament, we're going to use a beautiful napkin that has a really pretty scenery, and we're going to paint this background white. I tore out the little section of our napkin that I wanted to put on this ornament and then removed the little sneaky layers from the top decorative layer. I then grabbed my Mod Podge and put a little bit down over top of the white paint and applied our napkin. I shook some of Dollar Tree's faux snow bits into our little clear dome piece, a little too many bits, and then I had to attach on our rustic little ornaments. I used some of Type Bonds, quick and thick, to paint around the edges, allowed it to dry, and I love this piece so much. I'm really loving the gingerbread theme this year. So I took a couple cutouts from my TDS Rice Paper and applied some Mod Podge to these rustic little ornaments, creating an adorable set. Whenever you're creating ornaments, they don't always have to be Christmassy. As a matter of fact, grab whatever type of napkin, whatever type of tissue paper, and grab as many ornaments. You can take that one napkin and create a cohesive collection with as many pieces as you would like. Just pick a medium, attach your pieces, and then decorate your tree. This is one of the large colored ornaments from Dollar Tree. We're just going to remove this piece off the top. Oops. And then we're going to bust out the clay molds. Really not sure what molds I want to use, so I just grabbed a couple of them. Use whatever type of clay you would like. I'm using paper clay. That's one of my favorite clays, and I'm just pressing it down into these border molds. I get most of my molds off of Amazon for anyone that is interested, and I used our Type Bond Quick and Thick here to attach the clay pieces. This can be really tedious if you have the smaller ornaments and you're trying to do that on those. I have done that before with those, and I figured let's get us a big ornament because we're going to get artsy fartsy with this decoupage piece, and I really wanted to have some room to play with on this ornament. I used 2 different molds to create 2 different borders, so we had 4 total, and I just trimmed the clay down to size, and then I added some leaves around the top. I recommend letting this dry overnight before you start to paint your piece. You could paint it beforehand. You could go about this several different ways. This is just how I decided to tackle this. There really isn't no right or wrong way. It just depends on the way that you want your art done. I'm using 2 different color greens. When I'm doing a piece like this, I like to have a variation of different colors. I feel like it just kind of brings it to life, along with allowing different sections to pop. I used those green colors to color in the leaves along with the border pieces that we attached. I don't want to decoupage right onto this silky plastic, so I'm using a creamy chalk paint to paint right here in the center. Normally I'd use a pouncer for something like this, but because it's such a small area, I just use a detail brush to make sure I didn't go too much over the green sections that I had painted. Once your piece is completely dry, then it's time to decoupage. I cut out 4 different sections from my TDS Decoupage tissue paper. I'm going to use just a little bit of Mod Podge and spray a little bit of water onto the back of these little sections and gingerly apply. I'm not going for perfect here. If I was, I'd cut little slits in the side to make sure they evenly molded around our ornaments. Instead, I'm going for that vintage look. You remember back in the day, well, it depends on your age, you could go over to your grandparents and they had these big old Christmas bulbs around their tree, and they were so vintage and so pretty, and my grandmother always had tinsel on her tree, and that's really what inspired this whole ornament, is just that vintage vibe. I don't always get the opportunity to get extremely artsy with my decoupage, but it's truly my happy place. When I'm sitting and decoupaging something, everything else just fades away and my heart just fills with joy. I hope you all truly enjoy this piece. Once I had everything put on this ornament, I took that green and smooshed around the edges, blending it together, and then added a little bit of gilding wax to the edges to make everything just pop and look cohesive. If you're looking for more decoupage ornament inspiration, check out this video right here. And as always, people, thank you all so much for hanging out with me today, and until next time, bye!